Right. So, as I said, guys, there is a lot of changes which continues to happen in the financial markets. Today, we are going to learn about investing in change, and whatever we are going to talk about, we have mentioned before. This is only going for your information. If you plan to implement any of the portfolios or strategies discussed over these sessions, please talk to your risk experts first. Please talk to our investment consultants before you do anything like that. I use a lot of portfolios. Sometimes we have prepared for clients with different risk appetites, but just because of their relevant information, I would love to show it to you and share it with you. And that being said, uh, the point of significance is that it may or may not suit your risk appetite. So before implementing anything in your original portfolios or in your original investment criteria, do definitely ask us or have an opinion of your risk experts before you proceed. Now, understanding what are mega trends, because this is something which is a very important question, right? We talk about investing in change. Investing in change basically is investing in a mega trend. And there are different themes, there are different mega trends. And in the context of your portfolio, as we speak, mega trends do not come because the markets happen to be in a particular mood. Um, like, for example, if there is a mega trend which emerged in 2020, it will be the same in 2021 and probably in 2030. So, into the future, because mega trends are the currents that have to meet at least uh, two or three conditions. And if you see, a lot of these megatrends, they bring a very big picture into a sharper focus. So for around 10 years now, there have been so many changes which have emerged, and now they have become pretty permanent, and it has affected all our lives. And that's why we call them megatrends, because I mean, either they have remained so relevant for at least 25 to 30 years that now it has become a trend, right? They have had an impact on literally every area of our lives, and they have triggered global shifts, right? So we are going to understand what are these mega trends are. We are going to understand what are these shifts are, and to proceed further, we need to know about what is thematic investing. Thematic investing again is a part of megatrend, and we are talking about thematic investing, which is more like an approach, and this provides an opportunity to identify and isolate these themes through different companies, through different sectors. And at the center of thematic investing, there are five mega trends which are shaping our future. So we're talking about technological breakthroughs. We are talking about rapid urbanization. We are talking about demographic and social change. We are talking about climate change and resource scarcity. We are talking about emerging global wealth. See, there are a lot of these mega trends, but I'm going to discuss more of what have been discussed within the investors. And technological breakthrough, we are not very unaware of what technology has become. I think there's exponential progress in the tech sector. And if you go far beyond, more than 75 billion internet connected devices are expected by 2025. So this is something which is really important. And we talk about rapid urbanization. We see that mass migration to cities, which will require new business models, infrastructures. A lot of people are now moving to cities, right? The urbanization is increasing. Two-thirds of the world's population will be residing in cities by 2050, and that is the double if you compare it from 1950. Similarly, there is demographics and social change. These days, longer lifespans are expected. Modern lifestyles will change medicines and consumer habits. A lot of estimates have been projected over a 45% increase worldwide in aged people to 60 or older in the next 5 years. And then again, there is, of course, climate change and resource scarcity. We are not strangers to climate change. We know that this is something which is real and happening. Demand for a greener tomorrow will advance energy and conservation. 50% of the world's energy is predicted to come from solar and wind by 2050, which is much higher than what it was in 2015. And when you look back and ask yourself a question that have you been investing into climate change based companies or not, you will get your answer real quick, because there are very few investors who are looking into that, because a lot of fund managers also are not looking into it. And that is why this session is being conducted, just to make you aware about these mega trends and changes which could shape the future of your portfolio, right? A lot of you stop invest in coal and power companies, fossils, food and beverages, tech also. And then sometimes there is a specific type of tech. Maybe currently you're investing into Apple or Google, but then there are cyber security companies also. There are remote medical consultation companies also, an emerging tech area, right? And then also there is emerging global wealth. We're talking about new consumers which are expanding in Asia across emerging markets. Emerging markets today are predicted to represent 6 out of the 7 largest economies by 2050. So a lot of mega trend is expected to happen, and these themes will continue to grow further, and the companies and sectors in these themes will also continue. So to begin with, there is investing in cybersecurity, right? Um, these are the themes of 2025 also. We are talking about wind capacity, we are talking about digital payment, DNA sequencing, internet traffic, digital health, electric vehicles. It's something which has expected to continue. Now, looking at the main themes, which is the tech change or the technological change, because we can't be completely um, unaware of what role technology continues to play in our lives, because tech and science is one of those really important things. Within tech, we are talking about the areas of virtualization. We are talking about AI and computing power. We are also talking about greater interconnectedness, right? Because connectivity amongst people need to be increased between people, for good reliability, for good communication. Um, a lot of people would earlier, and I think a major credit goes to the pandemic for bringing people together through technology, because if there was no pandemic, people would not get so used to technology. Like today, you and me, we are sitting and having a session over a web. Webinars have existed long before, but how many people actually showed interest before? That's the question. People would love to come and meet and greet one on one personally, but post pandemic, obviously, um, good or bad, but it did make people choose that there is a way to maintain social distancing and still continue to get your work done. So technological change, as we see, obviously there has been a basic, a better change. We talk about AI, big data, we talk about robotics, automation, internet of things, digitization, and new technologies are changing the world. Modern companies, they're experiencing this mega trend. We talk about AI based companies or internet of things companies, fintech companies, also e-commerce. Even in healthcare sector, there's a lot of technology which has played an important role. Now, even in medicines, digitization has led to a faster and more accurate diagnosis. Medical treatments, obviously, like DNA sequencing, gene therapy, they are also getting more and more digitized. So this is really important, guys. Even in automotive industry, if you see the digital technology, it has accelerated electric vehicles to talk about, or e-mobility to talk about, development of self-driving cars. You talk about robotics, as we know today. Also, it's completely unthinkable without innovations in the automation and AI. More and more robots are able to take on tasks that previously could only be carried out by humans, right? So megatrends will affect all aspects of economy, especially when we talk about the tech changes. It's a lot of boosting productivity and economic growth also. I'm sure the popular argument is it is going to be replacing humans or not. But I think a lot of companies are putting their focus more on using technology to complement humans and not to replace one. And there are different areas, as we just pointed out a few. Talk about life sciences. There is a lot of research and development surrounding living organisms, and it continues to um, get better in the field of biology. It includes biotech, DNA sequencing, neuroscience. Um, Even in new materials, there is a lot of changes. High quality, high performance materials, affordable and environment friendly. Today, that is the new ask. So, from virtualization to dematerialization to computing power to artificial intelligence to greater connectivity, or DNA sequencing or life sciences or new materials, this is something which has improved. And this is something which is a new area of study. And there are a lot of companies in these areas. We are also going to have a look at how semiconductors have changed our lives, and literally every other function we do, it requires semiconductors. And yesterday I had a session on ETFs, and we discussed about a semiconductor based ETF. So today, fortunately, those who attended the session yesterday, today I'm going to show you what functions does the semiconductors would do, and how important it would be to invest in those ETFs and companies as well. So the first mega trend is again technological change, followed by we talk about value creation, sustainable value creation. I'm talking about environment, social issues. You're talking about corporate governance, importance of having ethical leadership, right? Impact oriented value creation. This is also something really important, because a lot of fund managers, even the most professional ones, they don't take into account the risk of sustainability. What happens tomorrow when the sea levels rise so much that the government forces the use of fossils to be prohibited, and all of a sudden there is a major change, there's a major shift from fossils to renewables? What happens to the investments which are done in coal and power companies? And most of the pensioners, most of the retiree funds go to these companies because these companies are deemed to be safe. But are they really safe? And have you considered what happens tomorrow if there is a massive shift from fossils to renewables? So, this is something which a lot of us don't really think about, but I think we need to think about this, because sustainable value creation is also one of those things which we should um definitely keep in our mind. And I'm talking about companies which are into environmental quality, because increasing level of pollution means there's a lot of impact on health and well-being, and that comes at an economic cost, right? Environmental improvement and protection are growing priorities right now. So there are a lot of companies which are trying to bring environmental quality. You talk about climate change, the impact of rising temperatures, sea levels. It puts a lot of pressure on policymakers, individuals, and businesses to limit greenhouse gas emissions, right? So this is also something really important. You talk about resource scarcity. As of now, as we speak, uh, the demand for energy, water, even I'm sure there are possibilities that global hunger is only increasing. There is not enough agricultural production happening which could feed everyone. So there's a lots of stress on resources. Consumer behavior has been changing, business decisions have been changing. So scarcity of resources is also one thing. Water distribution is not very ideal, food production is not really ideal. And then comes the biodiversity and ecosystem services, right? I mean, the fast pace at which we are losing biodiversity, this is called the sixth mass extinction. And the cost and opportunities related to ecosystem services, I mean, people are now able to understand it more. Earlier, what used to be a, a fancy terminology now has become an important part, because these environmental issues, and it's not just environment. When I talk about sustainability, it's not just about climate change or resource scarcity, or just environment. It would also include the global governance, right? Because again, uh, the corporate governance is something which is really important, which that means the leadership of the companies need to be ethical and be concerning of these issues. um, Transformation of the economy, as you can see, towards greater sustainability is in full swing. Almost every listed corporation today, they're pursuing sustainability goals. So environment friendly things, socially sustainable way, and you do that with ethical leadership. and there are companies which are actually doing it. And earlier, let me give you an idea. Earlier, people used to say that companies which are sustainable are less profitable, so you choose between purpose and profit. It's not like that anymore. Even the companies with purpose, companies with sustainability are also profitable, and there are a lot of investors who choose to invest in these kind of ETFs. So there are good reasons for this. Companies without such a strategy are often penalized now. Many investors compliance with ESG standards is becoming a relevant factor. So now you cannot get away. A company which is creating too much pollution or not putting environment into their consideration are being penalized because the environmental laws have become more and more strict. So it's our responsibility to be more favorable towards those companies which are implementing environment friendly activities in their day to day routine. And I think those are the kind of companies which would have a better future also coming in. So this is the second mega trend, which involves different themes. We are talking about environment, we are talking about social issues, corporate governance, and then impact-oriented value creation. Even if you see that there, we have to see there are so many mega trends which we have observed. Think about um, a multipolar world, because within this there has been a rise of emerging markets which are called frontier markets, right? Emerging trade tensions, race for global resources, race for technology leadership. So this is what a multipolar world is. There is a multipolar world order which is taking shape with new competitors, new consumers. Like USA is facing increasing competition and is no longer the undisputed world power it once was, right? New competition is manifesting not only politically but also in economic terms. So other countries are stepping up. Then the emerging powers now are making changes. Like take China for example, it's one of the largest manufacturers and exporters of EV. A lot of African economies are actually the best in fintech payments. They have accepted that technology. And then there is another theme which is demographics and urbanization, right? Because growing and aging world population, transition to a healthier way of life. Today, if you see, people are more concerned about well-being. They're more concerned about what they're consuming in food. Increasing global pandemics or health problems, smart cities, and increase in urbanization. So more and more human society is based in cities, and they're getting older. Physically and mentally, the older generation is enjoying better fitness these days and active in wide variety of ways, enjoying a high level of material security up to a very old age. So this is something also which is happening now. Obviously, when we say in form of these kind of trends, we talk about urbanization, right? So there are a lot of employment opportunities and social benefits and services which lead to productivity, right? If you see rural and urban areas, there is a big difference between employment opportunities and social benefits, especially in the developing world. So a lot of people are now moving to cities. There's a generational shift also. If you see the societal shifts now these days, if you see the technological changes that they are happening, it affects different age groups, how they interact with the global economy. Talk about population growth and migration. A global population, if we see, that it has like gone 4 times higher in 100 years. Europe's and parts of Asia declined, but the bulk of growth came in Africa. So, I mean, obviously, there's a belief that this will continue to influence more and more future migration, right? And when we see in form of society, obviously there is more focus on health. So you need to check for those companies, right, which are promoting healthy lifestyle or promoting mental health, or somehow public health is the primary part now. If you talk about individualization also, more of society is now focusing on a very individual choice, right? So these are few trends which have continued to grow, and mega trends are going to basically shape the future. And this is not something which has just emerged right away. This has been slowly getting closer and closer and closer, and it is connected. So you talk about, like for example, a lot of times it happens. We are talking about focus on health, right? So think about companies which are into remote medical consultation, or companies which are digitizing the health data, because now this has become an important part. How many of you today have tried or are wearing some sort of health tracker? If you are wearing a digital watch to catch your data, or if you wear a Fitbit, or these days I see a lot of people wearing Whoop. I'm not sure how many of you actually do it, but a lot of people in my office, they are wearing Whoop. I myself, and you know how it tracks your mental strain. It talks about your recovery. It talks about how much you have slept. Is it enough or not? Takes care of your pulse. So there are a lot of these companies which are heavily investing into digitalization of health, and the reason is that it's just one of those trends which have continued to start it. Now, investment and change, as we have said, there's a lot of disruptive technology coming in, and we have talked about a lot of these disruptive technologies. And this, again, this was not something which was there before. But if you see before 2008, the top 10 companies in the market, uh, they were ExxonMobil and PetroChina, General Electric, Gazprom. I mean, it was a more consumer utility. But by 2018, the top 10 companies by market cap, where was Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon? Tech ruled over. And there was a reason, because technology had such a great advancements, and within technology, there are so many areas which emerged. And sustainability was one of those changes in mega trends. And a lot of evolution happened. Post 2020, this progress even became more rapid. So, post 2020, we saw a rise of artificial intelligence. Now, within artificial intelligence, we saw cloud computing. We talked about streaming, live streaming. We talked about mobile connected devices. It talked about Internet of Things. So, just to give you an idea of what Internet of Things is, because that also comes into increase of tech. But if you see, there are so many companies, even in 2024, which are become the part of IoT. And what exactly is Internet of Things? You're talking about the online networks of devices, right, which communicate with other devices in the same network. Now, there are a lot of applications of this Internet of Things, and it's very diverse and it's kind of limitless, because from home security to track something or to disease management, there are so many IoT companies which are uncovering new opportunities every day, right? So you talk about cloud computing, you talk about Internet of Things. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities. Any company which is making consumer electronic devices or sensors or chips for industrial or commercial purposes, they have at least some exposure to Internet of Things technology. Talk about software platforms, they are managing these kind of IoT devices. Cloud computing companies, they are also engaging. So Internet of Things is one of those important ideas. And which are these companies? I'm talking about Cisco, talking about Alarm. Alarm is also one of those companies. It's a cloud-based platform and manages connected home devices, business devices. And there is Dexcom, which it basically makes glucose monitoring in medical devices. There is Intel is there. Like, there are so many of these companies which have continued to perform well in the area of Internet of Things. Even if you talk about companies like Dexcom, for example, number of people in US with diagnosed diabetes, it has only grown from 1 million to 30, 35, 40 million. More than 40, 50 million Americans have diabetes. Approximately 98 million Americans have pre-diabetes. So imagine the combination of growing rates of diabetes, and imagine the transition to continuous glucose monitoring. Now, this is a company which has so much growth opportunities. Even in 2024, sorry, even in the second quarter of 2024, the revenue of this company grew by around 15%. And we're talking about Dexcom. So year over year, if you see companies like Dexcom, they have grown around 11 to 13%. So what I'm trying to tell you is, guys, every single theme has a certain specialization. AI is cloud computing, Internet of Things. Internet of Things, you talk about Internet of Things includes a lot of things. It includes even the companies which are making glucose monitoring for medical devices, even the companies which are connecting the home security devices to your system. So that is all Internet of Things. We talk about genomic revolution, which is DNA sequencing basically. And there are so many companies in gene therapy or which provide immunotherapy or gene editing, for example. And within genomic revolution also, I mean, this is something which also has not been a very older concept. I mean, this is new, but not that new. People know about genomic sequencing. And again, there are so many companies now which have continued to show tremendous growth in this area. There is CRISPR therapeutics, there is bioenergenomics, there is so many biotech stocks. Even if you see the next half of 2024, the small biotech sector, it had very badly underperformed in the major market indices because see the risk with these kind of products, they're emerging. So obviously a lot of people would choose stocks and portfolios which are more developed rather than a new change. But then this is the session to tell you that how you can also take part in the future investments, right? What is going to be the change? So obviously, I mean, there are few biotech companies which can do really well in the next half of 2024 also. And if you see the small biotech sector, it has underperformed if you compare it with S&P 500, or if you compare it with, stocks like Nvidia or anything. But if you see companies like Altimmune, for example, so there are a lot of these companies. I mean, if previously the stock went down by 14-15%, but then there has been some good news on the trial development front. Some phase 2 study data around primary obesity. And it has been observed that there is a lot of potential where these kind of companies can actually help people with obesity. And their market capitalization is around 500 million. But then there is these kind of companies. What happens to eventually companies like Altimmune or Intellia Therapeutics? Because they are at clinical stage of trials, their drugs are at clinical stage of trials. These are the companies which sometimes get taken over. If a company wants to expand its or wants to diversify, so there is a possibility that they would find out a lead candidate which has a very strong therapeutic potential, maybe in the obesity drugs landscape. So they will look for Altimmune, and maybe this drug demonstrated uh, a good result during the weight loss, and that could differentiate Altimmune from others. So there is a possibility that this company can be a target of a potential buyout. So this is how a lot of times trends happen, and these new companies also get a lot of attention. But obviously you need to find out the best in these kind of trends also. So there are a lot of these companies in genomic revolution, and I'm just talking about the technology part here. You talk about robotics, there is 3D printing companies, there are drone manufacturing companies, the companies which are making reusable rockets, right? So there are a lot of times there are so many robotics based stocks. Even for 2024, if you see, there are a lot of these companies. Think about symbiotic company, or Zebra Technologies, or iRobot, or Intuitive Surgical. I mean, there are so many of these companies which you can always keep a check on. Of course, the movement in these companies is a lot. It can be really volatile, and they do not provide you any dividends because a lot of these tech companies, they don't provide dividends. But if you look about companies like Intuitive Surgical, for example, they have this Da Vinci surgical system, and it has done around 13 million surgical procedures, and it's expected to continue expanding its clinical operations. And then there are companies like Cognix, for example, which is basically specializing into machine vision system, and that is used for manufacturing automation. So again, these kind of companies, some of them have very strong financials also. Some of them have very optimistic guidance. Their revenues are expected to get better. Companies like Symbotic, for example, which specializes in warehouse automation, right? With AI embedded software, they have like companies. They have really shown strong financial growth. Even in the first few quarters, they have done really well. Their entire guidance for the this year, next year, it is expected to continue the revenue growth trend. because obviously this revenue is driven by AI enabled robotics technologies, and AI currently is in very much in demand. You look into stocks like Teradyne, for example, which is again a leader in industrial automation and robotics testing, right? So again, Zebra Technologies, for example, which provides solutions that enhance the efficiency of robotic systems. So I mean, there are a lot of these companies which are available, and you can always look into it. We talk about clean power, right? Battery systems, renewable energy, EV based companies, and there are blockchain based ETFs which are also available. AI, as we have spoken about before, see the theory and development of computer systems, the way they perform tasks is obviously more efficient than human. But if you see the pros, there is a faster response. They can a large amount of data can be quickly comprehended. Um, Obviously, it can become an expert in doing a lot more tasks, which can improve the productivity of the companies. And at the same time, if you see the global AI market, 2025, the revenue for AI is also expected to increase. In 2016, the revenue was around 643 million, which would be generated from artificial intelligence. Now, that is growing to $36 billion worldwide by the next year. And if you see the areas which are going to be benefited the most because of artificial intelligence, consumer products, business services, if you talk about advertising, you talk about defense applications, these kind of products are going to get benefited a lot because uh, this is where AI software can play a very important role in defense applications, in advertising, entertainment. Even image recognition segment is forecasted to be the fastest growing segment, right? So this is again, guys, the power of AI in the coming change, in the coming mega trends. It should not be underestimated. And to give you an idea, it's not something that you should always invest in tech companies, but also it's important to be aware about what is happening around the world. It's not necessary that today you have to invest all your savings into tech, but you must be aware that these areas they exist. You must know that AI should exist, DNA sequencing should exist. Companies like which are into improving the efficiency of robots, or companies which are specialized into improving the efficiency of the robotic systems and logistics, these kind of companies also exist. So you would know that there is such a scope into these areas also, and you will diversify. Right now, I'm sure everybody has done their set of investments, but because of not being aware of these kind of uh, opportunities, we sometimes tend to ignore also. Now, talk about clean energy, for example. Now, within clean energy, if you see 39%, clean energy is projected to power 39% of US utility capacity by 2030. So this was 13% in 2020, right? So clean energy is that part of mega trends which is coming into picture. And obviously, if you look at a clean energy stock, there are so many stocks which are into clean energy. And this is not something which is, again, as I said, this is not something which is very new to us, right? We have always talked about and heard about clean energy and what it is. And you look at companies like, for example, there are so many companies which are into clean energy. And you talk about uh, companies like National Grid, for example, or Waste Management, for example. These kind of companies are there. You talk about Applied Materials, for example, right? And again, as I said, that all these companies, NextEra Energy, for example, DRAN company, for example, these are such just a few names which are already there. And if you read about these companies, you will get to know that how much is their revenue and what is their further outlook, what do they normally do. Uh, like for example, GE Vernova, it's one of those companies which is focusing on electricity and decarbonization. Um, they have businesses in wind energy, solar energy, hydro energy, and they're driving more reliable and affordable sustainable electricity than usual. So their target of 2030 is to complete the carbon neutrality in its operations. NextEra is one of those companies which is providing a wholesale power generation while operating power plants. And they have customers which includes retail and municipal electricity providers, right? There are industrial corporations, there are power cooperatives. So they have invested billions in renewable energy. And it's one of the world's largest wind and solar energy generators. This is NextEra Energy I'm talking about, right? So again, as I said, that there are so many areas, even in clean energy, you can look into, followed by cloud computing. Of course, there are cloud computing is not new. We have seen cloud computing stocks and so many companies that the names are very common. You're talking about Amazon, the web services part of Amazon. You're talking about Microsoft, Azure. Microsoft is the cloud computing segment. You talk about Google Cloud, which is a part of Alphabet. You talk about Oracle Cloud, which is the part of Oracle. You talk about IBM Cloud, which is part of the IBM. So these are some of the best cloud computing stocks of 2024 as we speak, because cloud computing has been spurred by a pandemic. Trajectory for these companies is upwards, and their spending is projected to be nearly double in the future. So there are so many players like Salesforce, Adobe. They have adapted really well to the cloud computing era, and they are leveraging these AI technologies. And there are so many companies which are coming in. There is Snowflake, DigitalOcean, which are basically tapping into these markets of cloud computing, and a lot of long term growth is also anticipated. So you talk about companies like Salesforce, for example. If you hear about Salesforce, they have basically taken over remote working completely. They collaborated with Slack, and again with Microsoft Team, and they have offered a complete suite of software which is aimed at helping business teams manage data and get work done really efficiently. So, and again, there are companies like Snowflake. There are companies like, for example, Zoom Video Communications, or ServiceNow, or Trade Desk, or DigitalOcean. So many companies which are. Plus, by the way, yesterday when we were talking about ETFs, I talked about semiconductor-based ETFs. There are cloud computing ETFs also. You can invest in cloud ETFs. There is an ETF called First Trust Cloud Computing ETF, Global X Cloud Computing ETF, and these are the ETFs which have continued to exist at least since 2018, 2019, since the emergence of cloud computing. So you can also invest into these areas using ETFs also. Then you talk about EV and future transportation. The global EV sales is expected to grow by 10 times in 2030. So obviously there are so many EV companies. And when you are investing into EV as a sector, don't only invest into cars which are, or don't only invest into companies which are manufacturing EV cars. You could also invest into those companies which are making EV charging stations, which are making packaging for recycling the batteries once they are used. So there is a whole lot of scope in EV. When we talk about EV, we talk about the entire industry and not just about a specific company or a specific industry. So when I talk about EV, does not mean that buy Tesla. When I talk about EV, it does not have to do with only those companies which manufacture electric vehicle cars, but even service-based companies, so companies which are providing recycling of batteries, companies which are providing infrastructure for manufacturing EV charging stations, even those kind of companies can be game changers. Right, you move on to digital health. Obviously, if you talk about digital health, there are so many companies now which have come into digital health stocks. From alone 2024, I can give you an idea. There are a lot of these best, some of the healthcare stocks which you can look into. And you talk about Davita Inc., for example, or Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, or Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Digital health investment is actually now in 2024, it has rebounded, because like in if investment patterns in the first half of 2024, the way they have persisted, this year could actually exceed the totals what we have seen in 2019 and 2023. because this is the increase in the investments in the area of digital health. Because the momentum of the investment, it continues. It the way they have actually uh, done in 2019 and 23, it's much more higher in 2024. Digital health startups in US, it has raised around $5.5 billion across more than 250 deals, and this has been just in first half of 2024. You talk about seed financing, Series A, Series B, almost 84% of investments, and this is important. Why? Because there, I mean, acquisition of digital health companies, that is also one which I said that a lot of these companies, they get bought out, they get acquired. So a lot of times it happens that a company which looks very promising, but you feel that it's very small, but if their work is really promising, it's get taken over, and then again the value of that company rises. So the digital health sector continues to demonstrate adaptability, right? People are investing into these kind of companies, and there are so many stocks also in this area. So if you look about the e-health stocks, or let's say for example the digital or the medical companies into, I think DVA is one of those things, HCA or Vertex Pharmaceuticals. And this is only something which is not just remote medical consultation. Telatalk was one of those talk which was very famous in pandemic. So I think during that time that stock really went high, but after that I think there was a deep dive into that stock because everything reopened, and telemedicine and digital health, it kind of took a nosedive. And that is something which is, again, there are a lot of companies which are still trying to do technological advances in last recent years, because impacted by pandemic, healthcare providers, they have adapted using technology and new platforms, and they are bringing health to more places now. This is what telemedicine and digital health concepts, they were born, right? So telemedicine or digital health, it's basically, it is using information and communication to provide health services remotely, right? And health professionals can interact with patients without needing any physical presence. So there are mobile apps, video calls, messaging systems which are actually allowing patients to be monitored. And even in those areas which are hard to reach, like so many rural areas, it optimizes time, resources for both patients and healthcare providers. So the evolution of telemedicine, there is an exponential growth which is also happening. It is reducing the cost, and again, as I said, it is improving the efficiency of the health management also. So I think this is something which a lot of companies would want to be investing in, and as an investor, it only makes sense for investors to keep an open mind and look into the area of digital health also. As I said, the digital connected healthcare market is expected to grow 160% from 2020 to 2025. So the next year we'll see a lot of uh, progress in this area as well. And as I said, semiconductors, one of the most important areas in our lives right now. You talk about AI, machine learning, analysis, semiconductors is important. You talk about new commerce, enabling retailers to uh, serve the better customers, serve the customers in a better way. Semiconductors are important. Digital media transformation, secure cloud, software as a service, customer engagement, fintech, digital payment, electrification of cars, self-driving technology, Internet of Things, 5G, cybersecurity, future of work. Every single thing requires semiconductors, right? So this is important. Why? Because if all of these require semiconductors, you can invest through semiconductors ETFs, you can invest into semiconductor stocks. Companies like TSMC, Qualcomm, ARM, Broadcom, ASM Technologies, Lam Research, Intel. There are so many semiconductor based. Nvidia. I mean, I have not mentioned Nvidia. I'm sure everybody has seen what happened to Nvidia. So the idea is to be open to guys. You can invest into these areas, these change-based companies using shares, individual companies, as I talk about. You can invest into these areas using ETFs, and you can also invest through share baskets. There are baskets made which focuses on specific mega trend like technology or electric vehicles or as I said, remote medical consultation or remote lifestyle. There are a lot of these baskets which are also formed. So you can invest through that also. And again, that being said, I'm sure all of us have always heard about these things, but somehow it happens that we turn our face around because nobody talks about them. But then also, it does not mean that these trends have not emerged. There are so many companies which are doing well in this area. I have done these sessions so many times and I have looked into these spaces. And year on year, the movement in these areas only continues to get better. I mean, first time when I did this session, Nvidia was not a stock which people would be so psyched to buy. But in the next 3 4 years, we actually saw what happened to Nvidia. It became one of the most successful companies in the world. So my question is that if we see the changes happening now, are we investing in this for the future, or basically in the future we'll sit and just think that okay, we could have invested in it? So I feel a part of your portfolio deserves a futuristic view. And as I said, that this is something which is more for information purposes. I would always tell you that just be aware. The idea of this session was not to tell you that invest now in this, but yes, I mean definitely do look into these areas while you continue to invest in your stocks and bonds and commodities. Within stocks, while you continue to buy consumer utilities and dividend based stocks and your Amazons and Alphabets, it's worth a look into these smaller companies also, these emerging areas of change which can actually shape up the future, right? Because there are so many things expected to happen in the future, and there are so many things which has happened. Nobody expected a pandemic, yet it happened. Nobody expected that tech would grow so fast. I mean, we used to talk about flying cars back in 2000s, and imagine cars are flying. I mean, they're not commercial yet, but maybe in the next 5 or 10 years they will be. We are talking about driverless cars. We are talking about drones delivering everything. So my question is, have you invested in these changes? And in the next 5 or 10 years, when these kind of companies become bigger, the next Apples or the Googles or the next Nvidias, would we be there to uh, take the benefits out of it? So again, do open your mind and try to do more research on this, what I said today. Century, as investment consultants, we try to dive deeper into these kind of areas, try to find out which companies have stronger balance sheets or stronger products or a potential to grow. And if asked, definitely we can prepare a portfolio for you, give you an idea about investments in these mega trends. And that being said, this has to be something which has to be only a part of your portfolio. Please understand, I'm not saying that exhaust all your savings into these things. Of course, these are mega trends, but it takes time for these trends to actually become a day, or for example, like remote communication was a mega trend, but now it has become a part of our daily lives. It has been commercialized so much. Smartphones was one of those mega trends, and now it has been commercialized, so it has become a part of our daily lives. It takes time for a mega trend to actually become so commercial that we cannot imagine our lives without that. And it remains relevant for 30, 40 years, and it changes the way we live. So there are so many things which are happening now which are probably going to change the world we live in and going to change us and how we operate as a society. So I think this has given us something to think about today. And that being said, it brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much for joining. And I really hope that you have a great week. If you like this session, please review us on Google. We are Century Financial. We are investment consultants, and your reviews and your feedbacks really helps us to grow further and continue to do these sessions day on day. Uh, Next week, same time, 7 to 8 Monday, we are going to have session on different investment strategies. And as day passes in this September, we reach closer to the central bank announcements for rate cuts, and we have seen that there's a lot of market volatility. So day on day, we are going to take these topics to talk about. US elections, corporate earnings, Fed rate cuts and their impact on the markets. And we're going to talk about market neutral strategies, your style of day trading, swing trading. And a lot of these topics are coming in. And I hope to see every one of you in the next sessions also. Go to century.ae and check our webinar calendars, and you can register yourself using your email, and you will be notified when the session is going to happen. And I'll see you next week, 7 to 8 p.m. Once again on a different topic. Thank you for joining today. You have a great week, you have a great night, and a very happy weekend to all of you. Thank you so much.